And a very good afternoon to you on Watford FC, You ORNS Watford FC post-match, and on X and YouTube. Thank you very much for joining on this edition. The final score today from CBS Arena was Coventry City 2, Watford 1. Unfortunately, obviously, we didn't win the game. We didn't play well enough to win the game, and Coventry deserved 3 points. So we showed a bit of fight off the bench with Sissoko scoring the goal. But really, this game had been lost to us a long time before. We never really got the traction in this game that we wanted. The defensive intensity was very poor from us today. And with all that's gone on over the last, 3 or 4 days and the last few weeks at the Vic, and with all that the fans have done to get Tom Cleverley to keep his place suddenly becomes a bit more shaky on rickety ground because now this team did not put in a good performance at all today. I mean, outside of about 5 minutes where they did pressure Coventry, they'd have 3 chances in the first half and maybe 1 in the second half. Of course, that's the one they scored off of. And another one just after that. In the course of a 96-minute game, Watford just did not do enough. Thank you for the Watford supporters for joining. If you have something to say about this game, about Tom Cleverley's position, about the situation with the owner, and anything else regarding Watford FC, please hit the request button. You can do that right now on X if you are listening there. You can also leave a comment in the comments section on X as well if you're watching on YouTube. Thank you very much for doing so. And I will read out your comments here. Brown Electrons gets us kicked off right away on YouTube, and he says, owners setting Tom up to be sacked, says Brown Electrons. What say you about Tom Cleverley's position now as the Watford manager after a 2-1 defeat at the CBS today to Coventry City, who looked really good today, I must say. Frank Lampard has them playing like gangbusters. That lad Asante, I don't know how he didn't score a hat-trick in the first 10 minutes of the game. He was really, really good. Then he was subbed off, and Torp scored 2 for them as well. And there was a lot of afters in this game in the second half. Referee didn't do the best job, I would say, at the least in this game. Booking players he shouldn't have booked, and booking players and not booking players he should have booked. You know what I mean? It was just one of them. But Watford, we just didn't play good enough today. And you would have thought that these lads, off the back of what happened the last 48 hours, all the speculation, all of the worry and the concern, and with the, well, do I dare say, dreaded vote of confidence for the Watford manager from the owner today with that very clear statement, you would have thought that there would have been a new lease on life with these lads today. But unfortunately, that was not the case. And so as a result, we sit here, I think, a little bit nervous still because this owner, like all of us, can change our minds. And God knows what happens tonight. We will be holding our breath. The statement was out there today. It was official. We always have believed that Tom is the man who can coach this team. And look what's happened. Look, today, to be fair, we can't overlook some things. We didn't have Barr, we didn't have Loser, and we didn't have Festi Ebicelli. Let's be fair about that. Having said that, though, this team was then charged with the responsibility of kicking things into overdrive and putting in a shift. And quite frankly, I don't think too many of these players put in a real solid shift today. I can look at maybe 5 players who did. You look at Pollock, I thought he put in a shift. I thought Larousse, I thought he did pretty decently considering everything. And I thought there were 1 or 2 others who did as well. And then actually Sissoko coming off the bench looked like he was interested. As I've said many times with Sissoko, he's much better coming off the bench at this stage of his career. He scored the goal. Admittedly, it was credited as an own goal, but he is the one that put the final Watford touch on it before it did get deflected in. And Watford got the goal back. And all of a sudden, there was life in Watford, and you felt that they were going to come back. But we just didn't do enough. We just didn't do enough overall over the 96 minutes to really merit anything out the game. And as a result, we lose. We lose again. That's now, 2 in a row? We've bought both in the last, 4 days or so? And we've lost by the same scoreline as well. We have lost something like, I think, 5 of our last 7. There's reason to be concerned. 5 losses in our last 7 games. Right now, it's anybody's guess as to what's going to happen. I think Cleverley's still going to stay on till the end of the season. I made that prediction before the season began, a good month or so before it began, that he would get through an entire season without his job without losing his job. And I still think, or even off the back of this poor performance today, that that we would absolutely, that we will have Klebs here through the end of the season. The manager, the owner has said as much pretty much in that statement today, after a really poorly worded statement. I thought the day before, was it yesterday or the day before? I forget which. I think it was Thursday, when that really poorly worded statement came out that Tom's going to be here for the Coventry game. That's not good enough, right? So we all had to go at the manager, the owner, for that. And because of us, Tom Cleverley is still in a position at Watford, even after this performance today. I want to just say something about Tom Cleverley before I get to your thoughts about the game and about Clevs. This is very important to say, and I'm going to read your comments out on YouTube as well. Thank you very much, fellow Watford fans, for joining us here on You ORNS post-match. Thank you very much for that. Now, I'm going to say something really quickly about Clevs and about us. Tom Cleverley is part of the fabric of this club, and we as Watford supporters, almost every single one of us absolutely loves Tom Cleverley, thinks the world of him. He's been a loyal soldier for us all these years. He's had 2 tours of duty as a footballer for us. He's been a coach before, the under-18s, and now he's the first-team head coach. Now, listen, this showing of support for Clevs is the reason he's still in a job. Whether we worry about what happens from here on in, we, the Watford fan base, are the ones who have kept this man in his job. End of story. And this is a testament to the power that we as Watford supporters have. People say that the fans really can't make a difference. I disagree with that statement from anyone who would utter it. We as Watford supporters have much more power than we are led to think. And our continued vociferous objections to the shenanigans of this owner around Tom Cleverley, the failure to back this man despite our injury-hit squad, the failure to show him adequate support. I know about the finances. Andrew French has written about them this week. We know about it. But he's got to back this man. And our vociferous, continuous protest on social media is the reason why that man is still in his job. Make no mistake. It's because of you. It's because of you. It's because of me. It's because of all of us that this man is still in his job. Had we not had the persistence that we've had over these last few weeks, and this week especially, this man would absolutely be out of job tonight. You would see a corner flag tonight. I don't think that's happening now. We've had a statement, and he's got to stick with it. And we're going to have to keep the pressure on the owner to stick with it. And the last thing I'm going to say about this is that we as Watford supporters, as united as I believe that we are now, have to keep this going, regardless of Tom Cleverley, whether he stays, whether he goes, whether he's here next season. We as fans have to keep organizing, keep mobilizing, keep bringing our voices and making them heard, no matter what. We as Watford fans really have an obligation to advocate for the best interests of this football club. That's what we are charged with the responsibility of doing. And I think as Watford supporters, we have to continue to do that. We cannot turn around now and say, job's done, it's done, I'm going home, because Klebs might stay for the rest of the season. We have to continue this. We have to continue to organize, to stay united, and to continue to peacefully, lawfully exercise our freedom of speech and our right to protest peacefully and in a lawful way. And as long as we keep doing that, keep making our voices heard, I think we can continue to do what we're doing. We do have a lot more power than we are led to believe. So I want to just say that we've got to keep this going, and we've got to keep advocating for the best interests of Watford Football Club. The owner is a steward of the club. He is charged, or she, in this case it's he, charged with the responsibility of looking after this club. And yes, it's been a rough ride economically. The books are showing that. Andrew French did an excellent job of the reporting on that this week at the Watford Observer. We have to continue to hold this owner accountable. And we have to do that by our voices, if necessary, economic protest, and those kinds of things. That's really how we have to do this. So I just want to say that. And one other thing about this before going back to the match itself, I also give a lot of shout outs to Andrew French as well for his reporting, for what he did with the poll this week. The vast majority of us said that we did not want Cleverley to go. Don't think the owner didn't see that. Don't think that that didn't get back to the owner. And also, as well, Troy Deeney for speaking up on Talk Sport earlier this week as well. I think that what he said had to have been heard by the owner. I think that the ownership respect Troy Deeney. I think the ownership, listen, I think Troy Deeney ran them for a little while, quite frankly. But I think that they do look at him and they do see him as a key figure at the club. And his comments, as honest as ever, which is really what we love about Troy Deeney, what I love about him, because that's the kind of person I am, is that he told you what he felt, spoke his mind. And I think that the owner must have seen that as well. So I also credit Troy Deeney and Andrew French. But above all, it's you and me. It's all of us as Watford supporters that really are the ones that take the credit for this. And we have to continue to sustain our voices now, as far as Clevs or anything else is concerned. Not only Tom Cleverley, but with everything else. So that's my 2 cents or 2 pennies or 2 shillings on all of that. Now, back to the game itself. Again, really poor, I think, in general, in many respects. There were moments that I thought we did handle the Coventry pressure fairly well. I thought we did well the first 20 minutes. I think we just didn't do well the rest of the first half. We did not get tight enough on the advancing centre half, Rudoni, who was able to run right past Bio. Bio did not put in a tackle on him. It did not get a body on him at all. And I know Bio's not a defender by trade, but he's got to do better in that situation. Basically, Bio backed off once Rudoni crossed the ball into the box, which you should never do. You have to take one for the team there. But Bio backed off. You can see him actually back off and move out the way a little bit as the ball is being crossed in. That's the time where you actually put your head into the mix and take one for the team. But Bio didn't do that. And as a result, the ball is able to get in past him into the box, and Torp scores the goal after 32 minutes. That really was the mistake there by Bio. And then we just didn't do well enough in the second goal. Look, I mean, it's a good free kick. You can't deny that. But the bottom line is that the free kick, and I predicted exactly where that ball was going to go. I said it's going to go to the right of Jonathan Bond, just above him. And that's exactly where it went. The wall was good, but I didn't really see where the jump was. It was a really good free kick. I guess there's not really too much you can do about that. But there we have it. And those were the 2 goals. Watford got theirs back through Musa Sissoko. It was credited as an own goal, but I'll give it to Musa, whatever, you know. But he scored off the bench. And of course, he's much better off the bench than he is coming in to start these games. And we saw that again today. But too little too late from Watford. And it's now 2 defeats in a row in the space of 4 days. My only concern now is what happens next. Does Gino turn around and change his mind? He's got to stick with this, but we have to be the ones to hold him responsible to sticking to it. So that is where I will go here. I want to read out your comments on YouTube at the moment. If you have any comments on X before we say goodbye to you on X, please do leave them and I will read those out. But as of the moment, I don't see any comments being left on X. So what I'm going to do now is read your comments out on YouTube. And what you say on YouTube here is, Matt, hello to you, Matt. I got the score wrong, Matt says. Let me say that again. Let me read it properly. Hello, Matt, and thank you very much for your comment on YouTube at YOU ORNS WFC. Please subscribe there, won't you? Thank you, and like the videos. Matt says the following: I got the score right, but just the wrong way around. Yes, you did, Matt. You did say that in the pre-match here on YOU ORNS at YOU ORNS WFC on YouTube, and you were quite right. You said 2-1 Watford. Unfortunately, it was not that way. I predicted it would be a 2-2 score, so I got that wrong as well. And that's just the way it goes. Watford just didn't play well enough today, did not bring the defensive intensity that you need and the commitment that you need. I think we did not get close enough to their advancing players. Their wingbacks were able to run down the channels fairly easily on us, which I thought was a disappointment. We needed to do more closing out, and we didn't do it. Now, that's just the way that goes. Brown Electron says this on YouTube. We didn't deserve anything today. Fair play to Coventry. Really went at us that first half. Positive as TDB looked all right, I thought. Yeah, Brown, I think you're right. We just didn't deserve anything out the game. It's a pattern now where you can tell whether this team is interested or not. We weren't interested against Preston the other night, and that game we looked like we were still sleeping. We were playing the game as if we were playing it at 2:45 in the morning as a kickoff, not 7:45 at night. In this game, we just didn't have the proper intensity. And you can see a look on Tom Cleverley looked very concerned at the end of this game as the seconds were ticking away. He looked very good. Boy, I wish I could have screenshotted that. A face of real concern on the part of Tom Cleverley. And I'm sure it's because his job is probably still flickering at the moment. But I think he's going to stay no matter what this season to the end of it. And Watford are going to stay in the division. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But if they do start to lose, if let's say Tom Cleverley and this team go on a 5-game losing streak, it will be very hard to be surprised if Gino pulls the trigger, if you will. You know, it'd be very hard to see that doesn't happen. Anyway, that is going to be it now on X. I'm going to read out more of your YouTube comments. We'll go off to Instagram land next. But that is it from here on X. For those of you on YouTube, keep watching. We'll continue on for another few minutes. The final score again from the CBS was Coventry City 2, Watford 1. Frank Lampard does it again. I think that's 3 or 4 wins on the spin for the Sky Blues. Listen, Frank Lampard's got that team playing the right way. Watford fall to their 12th defeat of the season. We've got 12 wins to go with that as well, and miss a chance to get closer to the playoffs. It's a really, really tough thing now. There's lots of games left, but we have to play better in these games, and we can't keep coming from behind. That is it for now on X. Until next game against Norwich, it is going to be an early afternoon kickoff at 12:30 at the Vic next Saturday. I'm Omar saying, you orns. Take care and good evening. Those of you on X, thank you to you. And those of you watching on YouTube, thank you as well. We're going to head to Instagram land for a few minutes now. I'll continue to read out your comments. And of course, looking forward to talking a bit more about the club that we love after a 2-1 victory. Where do you stand now? Do you think that Tom Cleverley is going to keep his job? I think he will. Listen, the owner came out today in a statement and made it very clear, unlike the statement that was released 24 to 48 hours ago. And I want to welcome all of you on You ORNS Extra on Instagram Live. Thank you so much. My name is Omar, and welcome to this edition of You ORNS Extra on Instagram Live. Great to have you aboard. It's great to be here also on YouTube. For those of you who have stuck around, thank you so much for the Watford supporters, to where you can have your say about this match. Really, there's not much to talk about, is there? Really, except for Tom Cleverley at the moment and where his future lies. I remain very confident that he will stay to the end of the season, despite this result today. I have told many a Watford fan, many a Watford person, that Tom Cleverley, I predicted that back in July last year, before the season, that Tom Cleverley would make it through an entire season. And I think he will. We have to keep the energy going, though. We have to keep this owner on notice that there will be a full out. We will walk out of Watford. I think there's a lot of Watford fans now who have had enough now of all the shenanigans, and they will be ready. I think there'll be some Watford fans who'll be ready to walk away, not walk away from the club for good, but walk away from going to some of these games, and will pack it in, because you can't deal with this over and over and over again. Now, even if Tom Cleverley goes through another couple of games of defeats, I still don't think he should be gone. Hello there, Joe, on Instagram. Good to see you. I don't think he should be gone after, and even if he loses 2 more, that would be 4 in a row, and that would be something like what, 7 of their last 9. I think it would be very difficult not to let him go, but I still don't think he should go. But that's not in our hands. What is in our hands is our voices, and we can use our voices to make them heard and to let the owner know. Joe Larkin says, it's the same every game. We only start trying in the last 10 minutes, and by then it's too late. Joe, you're absolutely right. That's a real pattern. Joe Larkin there on Insta. Joe, you're correct. That's a real pattern that I've observed as well over the last 10 games. We have done that. In fact, probably a bit further back than 10 games, because I think the whole game that we got a 1-1 draw out of was about 10 games ago, and maybe 7 or 8 games ago. And in that game, we were down 1-0 late, and we only really turned on the Jets when Bio scored his goal. And after that, it's going to be Rocco Vata scored his goal. And after that, we started to really look like a proper outfit. But our problem is, Joe and the fellow Watford supporters, in addition to Joe, is that we don't perform until late in the game or until after the other team scores. You can't do that. You can't do that at a football club and expect to get results. And I say that because and I'm just looking to think about this, if you look at all of the games Watford have played, there's only been 5 of them where we haven't scored first, where we've scored first. Mark, WFC, hello to you. How many more times, says Matt on YouTube, how many more times does Bio want to be offside before he learns to stay onside? Because I've lost count how many times he's been offside this season. Yeah, that's a real problem. I know Bio was blaming one of the players who passed the ball to him late. They have to be on the same page there. I don't completely stay with blame Bio all the way. He does get heat and criticism, and he should on this occasion as well. He has to be aware of his offside. He's got to be aware of where the line is. But I also think that the player's got to deliver that ball quicker. And one of the Watford problems this season is that we don't move the ball quickly enough. We really don't. By the time we make the move when we pass the ball, players are already moving. And, it's too late. And you've got defenders. It's too late. Now, I agree. Bio's got to hold the line. He's got to time his run better. But that ball has to come in much, much sooner than it does. And I don't know if it's players not looking up. They're not looking up. They're not looking at, picking their heads up and looking up. I don't know what it is, but they're not doing the job. And if they're not doing the job, you're going to get a player offside. And if the player's not watching and timing his run, you got to pick your head up and look and see what's going on around you. So Bio definitely to blame for that. I also think that the passer has to put the ball in earlier to him, and then let him run off the shoulder of the last defender. But we don't have that kind of quality to do that. Loser probably is the best player who can do that from a midfield position to make that ball work. But we don't have too many players like that. We really don't. We don't have that kind of quality in our side. So that is the response to you, Joe. Thank you for your comment. And excuse me, to Matt. That's the response to Matt. Brown Electrons agrees with Matt. After the 4th offside in as many minutes, I got up shouting at Bio. Also thought Ngaki's passing was so poor today. Yeah, Brown, Ngaki didn't have the greatest game. He was busy, but he was busy not doing very much. And so he got subbed off at the half. I thought that was the right move. You brought in, instead of him, they brought in Ryan Andrews. I thought Ryan Andrews made an impact for a brief while. Ryan Porteous, to me, was not very good. What else is new? So the other Ryan did not do a good job, and as a result, he is off. And so he didn't really impact the game in any way. Hello, Will Barnes. Nice to see you. It just wasn't good enough from a lot of the Watford players. There are probably about 3 or 4 players who I thought were good. Pollock was, I thought, good. I didn't think James Morris was bad, actually, either. And I also think that Larousse I thought Larousse was good. I thought defensively he held his position really well. He was able to put in a challenge or two. He was the only one that put a body on any of these Coventry players, for God's sakes. It got physical, and Larousse was the only one getting mixed in with it and getting stuck in. I really wish that Watford had focused more on working the ball up the pitch than getting involved in the afters with Coventry. I think that hurt them because remember they had a little bit of a bust up just before the free kick was given. And on that second free kick, remember the first one hit the hand of Sissoko. So then the referee, and it's correct to order another free kick. It was a little bit closer. And then that was when Watford conceded the goal. That's when Coventry scored off a really good free kick. But the problem is that Watford, I thought, looked a bit discombobulated. Even though they were organized in the wall, they had just come off of about 2 minutes of scraps and scrapes with Coventry players. And I think they looked a little bit off, a little bit. And so as a result, hey presto, they score. And regrettably, that really cost us. That second goal was the hammer blow. I still thought that with everything that we were up against, the fight back was really good to a degree. But the problem is that we went down 2-0. Obviously, if Sissoko scores that goal and it's 1-0 Coventry and he scores, different kind of game. Coventry looked very nervous for those 5 or 10 minutes. We put them under a lot of pressure, but that was the only time in the whole game where we really sustained pressure on Coventry. Other than that, and maybe a first half chance or two, we didn't touch Coventry. Will Barnes said the following on Insta. Thank you, Will, for the comment. Would be nice if Gino invested. Some of the players just have no quality. Yeah. And what I'm speaking about is exactly what Will has just hit the nail on the head for. You know, we just don't have the quality. And that's because of the money situation. And that's because if you don't have the money, you're not going to have the quality. You're not going to have that rich depth in your bench, on your bench. You're going to have a patchwork quilt, which is really what the owner's operating off of. But that doesn't mean that because we know that the money is dried up and it's been like that for a long time, doesn't mean that the owner's making good decisions. Doesn't mean that the owner should not be held accountable by the fans for the decision making, because some of the things that he's done, the whole thing with Antonio Tivic, as I mentioned before, is a joke. You know, this stuff is no way to endear yourself to the Watford fan base. Is no way to endear yourself to them. So that's the criticism as well. Gino needs to invest, and I think this is where I want to come back to, because I said this earlier. Watford fans have to speak with one voice. We've obviously been the ones responsible for the owner putting out that statement today that was much more supportive of Tom Cleverley, much more so. And so I think now we have to keep that going. We have to keep mobilizing together, organizing together, and being vocal on social media and beyond social media, whether it's podcasts, whether it's in person, whether it's at the Vic, whether it's not at the Vic, whether it's outside the Vic, peaceful and lawful. We want lawful and peaceful protests, whatever it is, right? On social media, do the thing you need to do, which is to, in no uncertain terms, you don't have to be swearing at Gino. Obviously, lots of us would love to see him go, but it don't work as easy as that. We have to, as fans, speak with one voice, and we have to be persistent. We cannot just turn around now because Cleverley is apparently going to stay for the season and the owner issues a statement to that effect. We can't just say, okay, job done, we go home. No, we have to keep this going next season, into the next season, into the next season. We have to continue to do what we're doing. So there we go. That's what I have to say. I'll read out your comments on YouTube. Thank you, Will, for yours on Insta. Brown Electron says, if we lose at home against Norwich, I think Tom is out. Well, put it this way. Norwich are now behind us in the table. They're directly behind us at the moment. Norwich got a thumping 5-1 victory over Swansea in the early kickoff. And so that really put Norwich in a very good position in the table. If you look at the table now, you see Watford now are still in 8th, but guess who's right behind them? Sheffield Wednesday and then Norwich. So Norwich actually are 2 places behind Watford. Watford have actually fallen down to 9th, I should say. So let me add that to the mix. You know, Watford are really now starting to slide a little bit. 12 wins, 5 draws, 12 defeats. -1 goal difference, 41 points from 29 played. You look at the results now. Let's take an honest look at them. The last 6 results. 4 defeats in their last 6, 2 on the spin. We've had 2 different times in the last 6 games where we've lost 2 in a row. We have lost 5 of the last 7. This is gonna, it's a tricky one. If Brown, if we lose the game against Norwich, you might end up being right. You might be right, because that would be 3 in a row we've lost, and that would be something that's very hard to overcome. 6 of your last 8 you've lost at that point. Very hard to resist. It's very hard to go against a sacking at in that position. But the problem with it as well, if I can play devil's advocate, is that we're still just 3 points off the playoffs. And so it's still hard to justify firing or sacking Klebs at that point. But if Middlesbrough and West Brom start to pull away and they both start winning and Blackburn win and Watford are cut adrift, that's where you might see something from Gino. But again, it's a results-oriented business. I don't think you can't argue that. Bushy Beard, hello to you on Instagram. Thank you for joining us here. After Coventry 2, Watford 1, it's the second consecutive defeat for us. And look, we've lost a load of games this season by the same 2-1 scoreline. We lost on Tuesday night 2-1. The 3-game losing streak that we had, I think all of those except for one was a 2-1 defeat. Or maybe not. We lost 3-1 to QPR or 3-0 to QPR, whichever it was. And we've lost a number of games. And so, yeah, it's concerning. It's still very concerning that we did not see. This is what worries me. And this is beyond the manager's control. The manager is staying on. The owner puts out a statement. The players will have noticed that statement. It would have filtered through to them. And yet they come out at the CBS today and lay an egg for the most part. They had about 10 minutes where they were fighting for the cause. And the rest of the time, the other 85 minutes plus, nothing. You wouldn't have noticed that they were on the pitch. Other than the shots that Vata had a chance with, the shot that TDB took in the first half, which was great save from the goalkeeper, I must say. Other than that, you wouldn't have known that Watford were really on, and the goal that they scored, you wouldn't have known Watford were on the pitch today. And I just wonder about the players, because Troy Deeney said something very revealing on Talk Sport. He said he knows a number of these players, and he's referring to the current Watford players. He knows a number of these players, and they're just not going to fight for you. That's what Troy Deeney said. I'm almost saying that almost word for word. And if that's the case, it's going to be a very difficult remainder of the season for all of us as fans and for the head coach. It's going to be because you're already seeing what several Watford fans today have said, is that we're not grafting enough. We're not putting in enough of a shift. We're not putting in an effort until the 85th minute of a game. It's not good enough. That's just not good enough. Either you want to play football or you don't. Either you want to be serious about putting in a shift or you don't. It's hard to justify keeping a manager, as much as I love Klebs, if you've lost 6 of your last 8 and overall have only had 1 win since the beginning of the year. They've only had 1. If you look at the Portsmouth game, which is the 2-1 victory, which is just before Boxing Day, that was the 21st of December or thereabouts. We've only had 1 win since then, and it's been a month, more than a month. So if this run continues on into Valentine's Day, let's say the next couple of weeks, and it continues on into Valentine's Day, there's a chance he could be gone. But I don't think he's going to go. I think he's going to. I stick with my prediction that I made before the season. I think Clev stays throughout the season. I think he'll get through the whole season without being sacked. Hello, Jack Magellis here in the United States. Thank you, Jack. Hello, Billy Hughes. Good to see you again as well. Welcome to the You ORNS post-match on Instagram, You ORNS Extra on Instagram Live, and of course, welcome aboard on YouTube. I'm going to read your comments out on YouTube because you've been leaving a few of them over the last few minutes, so I'm going to read them now. Here we go on YouTube. Your comments are as follows. Here's something that I would love to read out. And this comes in, let's just get this up here. Okay, from Brown Electrons. Surprisingly, it's Morris who's looking to hit those through balls off to the last shoulder of the last man. Yeah, Morris, I thought, played decently today. Thanks for that, Brown. I agree. I really do think that he did. I think that Morris actually played his best game in a long time. And I know he's not played very many games. He's not been great when he has played. He'd been left out of the whole squad for a number of weeks, and there'd been some exceptions, and didn't get on the pitch at all. So today was the first time in a long time, and James Morris did a decent job. A couple of times he put some good balls into Vata and Georgia. He certainly did. Hi, Omar. How are you? Says Ryan on YouTube. Thank you, Ryan. It's not a great result today. I think Tom Cleverley will still be under a bit of pressure now, but hopefully Watford FC can win against Norwich. I think Watford are going to get that win, by the way, against Norwich. If Cleverley goes, who would come in to replace him? It's a great question. Ryan on YouTube, thank you for that. It's a great question. Anybody's guess. There's a merry-go-round in the Championship. I know that there's lots of overseas managers that the Pozzos, I can't even talk, the Pozzos probably prefer. But it remains to be seen. I don't think he'll bring in an English manager, though. For all the Watford fans who are very serious about, we've got to have an English manager, and I don't think that's really, listen, yeah, it's always good to have an English manager, but I don't think that's a prerequisite anymore, I remember that used to be back in the 70s and 80s, that used to be a really serious thing. How dare you hire a foreign manager? Oh my God. I think it's less so today, but there are some Watford fans who, and there's lots of fans across fan bases. Look at the England manager now. A lot of England fans were very unhappy that it was a German named Thomas Tuchel who was named as the New England manager, But they said that about Sven-Göran Eriksson, the Swede. God rest his soul. He passed away last year when he was named as England manager. I think he was the first England manager who was, foreign-born manager. And people were not happy about that in some places. So the bottom line is this. I don't know, Ryan, on YouTube, who will come in if that were to happen. I don't think it will be an English manager, though. I think it will be a foreign-born manager. Although, again, the Championship is a merry-go-round. So there's lots of managers who are out without jobs at the moment. A few of them are, You've got, I don't think he would ever go for someone like Steve Cooper. I don't think most people would at Watford, but, he's an English manager. I don't think that he's going to be the one if that happens, but I don't think Tom Cleverley is going anywhere. I really don't, even with all the results. I mean, there may be certain conditions where that changes, obviously, but I don't think that's going to happen so far. Thank you, Ryan, for the comment and the question. Here is Billy. Was at the match today. Great support. Thank you, Billy Hughes on Insta. Really hope Cleverley stays, Billy adds. Not even prime Pep could do better with this squad. Yeah, that's a great comment. And I'm going to make that the You ORNS Watford FC post-match fan comment of the evening. Billy Hughes on Insta with this comment. Really hope Cleverley stays. Not even prime Pep could do better with this squad. I agree. And I think that's... very much so. Pep Guardiola would not be able to do any better, I think, with this squad. I really don't. The squad is not good enough. It's not talented enough collectively. There are some people who are talented on this team. Georgie, obviously, I pick out a few names. The likes of James Abankwah has got some real talent. TDB, players like that. who do some really good things. Matty Pollock, you can name the players, right? But the bottom line is that the team collective as a collective isn't good enough. It's not good enough. And if we were ever to go up, we'd get found out so quick. What? We would not survive in the Premier League. We wouldn't. Listen, I'd love for us to go up, but it's what resources you back your manager with and fortify the team with that makes the difference. And so that's something to keep our eyes on. Let me put it that way. I think the club, as owned by Pozzo, is a real problem. It's in a problem phase at the minute. I think the initiatives with the Watford FC Community Trust are excellent, and all that's been going on for a long time. The problem is the investments, the shortfall in the economics, the deficits, the debts, and the kinds of spending decisions that Pozzos are making. The deals that are getting done that we're not getting properly told about. The whole Antonio, I keep mentioning this a million times today. The whole Antonio Tivich thing is a disaster. That's a complete disaster. Come on now. You don't engender any goodwill with the fan base when you lie to them, quite frankly, and tell them that he's a loan player. And then now, months later, you say, oh, by the way, no, that's a permanent signing. We should have said it earlier. Yeah, you should have said it earlier. Like, why would you hold on to that information for 5 months? But that's Watford Football Club when you've got this ownership. And that's life under the Pozzos. And the Watford fan base has to stay united and stay committed and stay vocal. No matter what. We've got to stay vocal, no matter whether Tom's here, whether he's not here. So I just want to reiterate that. Would Jose Mourinho come, says Ryan on Twitter, on YouTube? Jose Mourinho is not coming to Watford. I mean, we can move on from that. He's not coming to Watford. He is, I think he's either at Roma or somewhere else right now. And he's not coming to Watford. That's not what Jose Mourinho's interested in. It's not a good fit. It's not a good fit for the club either. It's not the kind of personality the club wants. And for what the club is trying to achieve, Jose Mourinho would be someone who would be looked at as getting a job below his pay grade. Seriously, that's not where we need to go. So, I know you're I hope you're being serious there, Brian. To be frank, I hope you're being serious about that question. I mean, I'm not trying to presume your motives, because Jose Mourinho is not coming to Vicarage Road. The only way he's coming to the Vic is as an opposing manager. I'm glad you're at the game, Billy, and the support was really good. It's a shame that you have to come all the way back to your neck of the woods, whether it's in Hertfordshire or elsewhere, having nothing to show for it. I mean, the camaraderie is always good with Watford fans. We always travel well, but what we don't do well on the road is win games, and so disappointing, very, very disappointing that Watford didn't get anything out of this game. I shake my head at it, quite frankly, but there we are. Jack Magelli's, I feel this run of form shows how impressive Cleverley was in 2024. Jack, I agree with you. This does show you how impressive Clevs has been as a manager. He really has kept this group together, even when it seems as if they're on different pages, and even when it seems that they're not playing and they're disinterested. Clevs has done a remarkable job as a man manager. And I think another reason why Clevs is still in the job, Jack, is that the players trust him and the players play for him. And some of these players played alongside him. So, like a loser who's not in the side, of course, due to injury, but he played next to him. Jonathan Bond was in the same squad lineup, I think. No, that's not true. It might have been true the first time around when Klebs was here, but not this time. Sierra Alta was in the same team that Tom Cleverley was in, only a couple of seasons ago. It's easy to forget that Tom Cleverley just stopped playing about a couple of years ago, 2023, 2022, or thereabout. It's not that long ago that Tom Cleverley was a footballer himself. So, I think the players look up to him that way and they respect him as a man and as a manager. But the performances don't suggest that, because the performances, I'm sure Klebs would have called for a very good performance. And coming off of how poor they were against Preston, it's a real letdown. It's a real letdown. And I wonder what Klez has got to be thinking here. Lewis, hello to you. Hello, thank you, Lewis, for joining us. Belisa Greggs joins us. Tracy, hello to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining. J4 Kerrick, Joker Richardson, I think that is, joins us. Hello. He's talking live on 3CR now. And this is from Tracy. Thank you, Tracy. Tom Cleverly is talking live on BBC 3CR right now. That's Three Counties Radio, for those of you who don't know what 3CR means. But we all do, because a lot of us who are locals or people who listen to that know exactly what it is. Thank you, Tracy. Tracy says this: Tom Cleverly is talking live on 3CR and is saying he is not worried at all. He said he will work as hard as possible to get things moving in the right direction. Thank you very much for that comment, Tracy. Really appreciate that. I cannot stand JM. He is a greedy man. You have to tell me who JM is, because all of a sudden now, and I should know this. Oh, Jose Mourinho. Okay, I get it now. Tracy says, I cannot stand JM. He's a greedy man. Yep. Yeah, he's an Tracy, I find him to be annoying. I find him to be arrogant. I think even more than he is annoying, I find him to be arrogant. And yes, you did confirm what I thought you when you mentioned JM. You did say that. Thank you. Jose Mourinho is exactly who Tracy is referring to. And I do find him to be very arrogant, Tracy. I find him to be somebody who's very self-absorbed. He's got an ego the size of Texas, or an ego the size of the, I was going to say European Union. I don't mean to get political. But I'm just saying that his I mean, I'm not slighting the EU. I'm just mentioning the EU because the EU has has nearly 500 million people in what's called the European Union, and so that's what I'm trying to say. But the bottom line is of what I'm saying, Tracy, is that Jose Mourinho has a tremendous ego, and that's a real turnoff, I think, for any human being, to have somebody who is so full of himself and thinks he's God's gift to football and to the world. Tracy, thank you very much indeed for your comments about Tom Cleverly. Not worried. That's what Tracy has reported to us, that on 3CR, Tom Cleverly is not worried, and he's going to work very hard to turn things around. I really don't know where this went wrong. What happened? This team was so cohesive defensively at the end of November, and then when the Christmas period came, it fell off the cliff. Thankfully, it wasn't Jack Majelli's. Hey, Jack. Now, we're not talking about you as JM, but we understand that, mate. Thank you. No. You're a good man. We don't think that you're full of yourself. Tracy says this on Instagram, and I'll be reading your comments on YouTube shortly. Do not fret. I will get to you shortly. Tracy, though, has a comment here, and she says this: I met Jose Mourinho once in Harrods when he was Chelsea manager, and I remember two guys approached him, and he totally ignored them. Oh, Tracy, see? See? I told you. I know this man is an arrogant man. He's got an ego. I mean, if these two men had been rude to him, you would understand why he'd ignore him. But if they're just approaching him and they're being decent about it, yeah, he shouldn't ignore them. He shouldn't do that. That's not nice. That's not nice. It really isn't. But obviously you were nice to him, and obviously he met you, and so it's good that he treated you in a very decent and nice way, because I'm sure you're a very decent and nice person. You're not going to be swearing at I don't know you, but I would guess that you wouldn't be swearing at Jose Mourinho in Harrods. I'm sure you wouldn't do that, Tracy. I mean, you know, I'm pretty confident of that. Tracy says they were so excited to see him too. Sad. Yeah, that is sad. Oh, Tracy, you ignored him. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's I love it. Oh, I love it. Tracy, that's great. You ignored him. So you met him, but you didn't meet him, but you saw him and you looked at him and he probably saw you, but you ignored him. Whatever, but that's great. You ignore. So maybe you're not as nice. No, I'm sure you're a nice person. Tracy, thank you. Thank you for those comments. Thank you for those comments, Tracy. That was funny. That was good. I really enjoyed that. Ignored him. Yeah, good for you. Good for you, Tracy. Jose Mourinho. Yeah, he's arrogant, anyway, thank you for that, Tracy. Medicine, sorry. Oh, that's all right. Giving the taste of his own medicine. Yeah, no, good for you. No problem, Tracy. Good for you. Yeah, he's full of it. He really is full of himself. And I'm glad that you did what you did, Tracy. I appreciate that. John Weatherly says hello. Hello to you, John, on Insta. What are your thoughts, says Park to Prem on Insta, on the reports from Spain and the man who might replace Cleverly? I never believed any of those rumors. I'm being completely honest with you, Park to Prem on Instagram. I'll get to you shortly on YouTube. I never did. Now I did jump on someone's X space a couple of days ago at lunchtime here in San Francisco. I was invited to just jump in and have a few comments, and I did. And I did criticize the owner, which many of us have done over the years. There've been good things that the Potters have done. We know about the stadium and all the rest of it. Can't deny that. But the last 5 or 6 years since that FA Cup final that's the last Watford match I've seen in person, was the FA Cup final at Wembley. It's been that long. But I would love to come back in the very near future. And who knows, it might be this season. Not written that off by a long shot yet. So, but the bottom line, Park to Prem, is I never believed those rumors. Someone has sent me a message about, they're going to bring in Pacheta from Spain and all the rest of it. And I didn't respond because I honestly didn't believe the rumors. Even when the Mirror and the Telegraph and Talk Sport and others reported that he's close to being sacked, I never believed it. I want to see an act until it happens. And I know rumors, we love rumors, some of us, but until it actually happens, I'm not going with it. I mean, that's just the way I am. I'm much more cautious about these kinds of things. And I'm not usually quick to jump to conclusions. I didn't do my own space and talk about this. I didn't go on YouTube and talk about this with Clevs. I didn't do anything on the podcast about Clevs. Because as I predicted, I mean, again, and I am boasting now, Park to Prem, back in July of last year, I predicted that Tom Cleverley would get through the entirety of this season without being sacked. And I put on X just a couple of days ago, I'm sticking with that prediction. And I still stand by that prediction, even after this result tonight, which has been a really poor result. Didn't play well, weren't in the game, really, except for 10 minutes. I stand by that. I think that Tom Cleverley will make it to the end of the season without being sacked. That doesn't mean that his job ain't under threat. And it doesn't mean that there's going to be some very wobbly moments amongst us as the fans who are going to be really concerned. But as I said earlier, we absolutely have to continue to be united as a fan base. And we have to be responsible for the way we're conducting ourselves. Now, we can be vociferous. We should be persistent. We've got to be. And we've got to be absolutely lawful and peaceful. That is not an option. You have to be peaceful and we have to behave, whether we're doing the protests in person or not. And we've got to continue to send the message to this owner. And just because he's put out a statement today doesn't mean that he can't put out a statement tomorrow with a corner flag attached. And it also doesn't mean that we stop talking about this. We have to keep fighting. And we have to keep, and I say fighting, I don't mean physical fighting. I mean vocally fighting. And what I also am saying is We have to continue as a fan base to keep advocating for the best interests of Watford Football Club. That's what we have to do. And we have to do that with a singular voice. And we have to be organized, and we have to be well intentioned, and we have to be persistent and consistent in those particular missives. And once we are, we develop our voice, we platform our voice into something really tangible and real. And if people still aren't satisfied with how the Potters are handling things, then you do your economic boycott. I'm one of those who actually believes that economic boycotts do help. And yes, the money ain't there at the club and all the rest of it. I get that. But if you continue to say, well, look, they're not backing Clevs, then don't buy a shirt. You know, I'm not saying you shouldn't go to an away match, but then don't go to the matches at the Vic, or go to less matches at the Vic, you know, or just don't go at all to the Vic. There, we have power. Again, I go back to this comment. I'll read out your comments on Insta in a minute. We have more power as Watford fans. I've repeated this before for some of you who haven't been in the room on Instagram or on YouTube. I want to say this again because it is important to repeat. We as fans have more power than we think, than we are led to think, right? And we have to use our voices responsibly. We have to use our voices consistently, and we have to continue to sustain that. Not just this season, but every season. That's the only way that we either see change, or that we affect change, or that we put the owner on notice. I think the owner, without our voices, this victory of keeping Clevs here for the end of the season, whether that stays or not, but right now, that statement from the owner came because of you and me and us and all the Watford fans out there who kept vocalizing, kept their voices up on social media, back Tom, put out all the banners, all the rest of it. If we didn't do that and we didn't sustain it the way we did, he would be out of a job tonight. He would be out tonight. And I'm telling you, I also thank Andrew French. I'm going to say that again. Andrew, thank you for what you've done for the Watford Observer and for the fan base, for the community, especially this week with all the articles, and this week with that poll. 97% plus of us said, no, we are not going to be down with anybody sacking Clevs. Keep your hands off of him. Keep your hands off him, Gino. And that poll got to the owner. The owner had to have seen that poll. Somebody passed it on to him, and I'm sure he had a look at that. Troy Deeney as well has got to get some credit. And I know there's some divided feelings about Troy Deeney amongst some people in the fan base, but Troy Deeney speaking out on TalkSport was also important. He made it very clear, I don't like the way these people run things. It was very, and I love that, because we've got to be honest about the situation in front of us. And so Troy Deeney speaking out, I thought had an impact as well. So I want to really shout those two people out in particular, but really it's a shout out to you. You as Watford supporters, every one of us who made our voices heard in some way. You know, because even though I didn't think he was going to get sacked, and I made my prediction months and months ago that he wouldn't, you never know with this Potso family. We never know. We've seen this happen a million times. Rob Edwards, just go down the line. Javi Gracia, Cisco. I mean, was it right to get rid of Cisco after 7 games in the Premier League? Was it? I mean, that ship has sailed now from what, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Was it right to get rid of Cisco after 7 games? Was it right to get rid of Javi Gracia? Was it right to get rid of, we can go down to Rob Edwards and all the rest? So we have to keep our voices up here. That's what my point is. We have to keep our voices going. We cannot turn around and say, well, job's done now. Clevs is staying. Let's go home. No. The owner will understand when you do at least 2 things. 1, keep your voices up. Peaceful protest, which is 2. And 3, economics. If you withdraw your money, whether it's season ticket money, whether it's, you know, taking a different season ticket, spending less, whether it's not spending at all on season tickets, whether it's just doing 1 or 2 games a season at the Vic, whether it's boycotting and not buying merchandise at all, The owner will understand that. That's the only thing he really understands. And I know I've heard the talk about whether he doesn't like being embarrassed and all that. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. Maybe this stuff embarrassed him this week. Maybe it didn't. But I tell you what, embarrassment or no, if our voices weren't doing what we were doing, if we weren't putting up our objections on social media by the thousands, trust me, he would have made the move already on Cleverly. That you can guarantee. So that's what I want to say about that. For those of you who've come in, I'm going to read a lot of your comments now because you've had a lot of them come in. I want to thank every one of you for commenting, and please forgive me for getting to you late. I've been talking my ear off as well as yours. So it is approaching 6 p.m. in the UK. It is nice and sunny here in San Francisco. And it is almost 10 a.m. here in Australia right now, where at least in Western Australia, where Mr. Jack Boddington's coming from. Hello, Jack. Hello there, Jack. It is now approximately 2 a.m. And Jack, you can correct me if I'm wrong. 2 a.m. In Western Australia. Certainly it is there. And here in other parts of Australia, it is 4:55 in the morning on a Sunday morning. So there we go. I can tell you that I am probably right on that as well. Places like Sydney and Melbourne, where it is now almost 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. So, I really respect you, Jack, for coming in so early in the morning. I mean, it's literally 2 a.m. In Western Australia. I have that in Perth. That is really good. I mean, I'm an early riser, so I can probably get up at that time, but to be staying up until 2 a.m., and I can still do that if I really had to. I'm a bit older probably than you are there, Jack, but 2 a.m. in the morning, 2 a.m., that's pretty blooming good to be up. Anyway, Jack, thank you for your comment, and thank you, rather, for coming in. Well, that was disappointing, said Jack. Yeah, 2 a.m. in the morning there, Jack, in Western Australia, and you saw that nonsense. It was really disappointing, wasn't it? And that's what I'm kind of ticked off at the players for, because they really, Jack, didn't put in a shift today. Bio didn't get close to Rodoni, who ran down the wing for the first goal and put the ball in. He allowed Rodoni to get the full stride past him and backed off as Rodoni was squaring to cross the ball. I think that's Bio, very unlike him. He always tracks back and puts in a shift, but well, anyway, we'll go on from there. Tracy says, I'm not having it either. I'm with you, Omar. Thank you, Tracy. I really appreciate that. You're referring to what I talked about earlier around the owner, I believe, and around what's happened with Tom Cleverly here. Park to Prem adds the following: I always love your opinion, and I saw your post about that. Thank you, Park to Prem. You did see what I said about predicting Tom Cleverly would stay. Yeah. And also I posted, thank you for that, Park to Prem. At least you got to see it on X, and also here on Instagram as well. I posted it as well. But what I didn't post on the Insta, which I will post, is the need for us to stick together as Watford fans. I did post that on X at YOU ORNS WFC. I need to also put that here on Instagram as well. I did mention that, and I've talked about it here as well. The need for us to stick together and sustain our voices, because football clubs are nothing without the fans. Watford FC is a really good club. I mean, it's a nice club. It's a great family club. But I tell you what, for the Watford supporters, it's not a club without us as fans. Not a club without us as fans. And if the fan base isn't there, the club ain't there. There's lots of good people at Watford Football Club. I know one or two of them. Said hello to one or two of them. Met one or two of them over the years. These are decent people. And the owner needs to be decent as well. And the owner needs to be more thoughtful as well. And the owner needs to absolutely back Tom. The owner needs to also consider the fans more. I know that he's had some at our place meetings. I get that. Fine. I forgive me for being cynical here. You can have all the at your place meetings you want to. The bottom line is that once their meetings are over, if the fan base, if we as a fan base are not sustaining pressure on that owner, them meetings don't mean nothing. I'm sorry. And I'm not saying, listen, I'm not a part of them meetings, right? And I'd love to get, I would get on a plane and I, listen, I will get on a plane and fly out there for these meetings. I really would. If they're not live streamed, I would happily do that. But the point I'm making is that one meeting or two meetings or three meetings really doesn't cut the mustard if we as Watford fans do not continue to apply the pressure on the owner and keep honest. I mean, it's down to us. We have the power. We've got more power than we think. And it's a really proof positive of that. The positive proof of that is what we saw this morning with that statement from the owner. Gino don't put out no statements. When's the last time Gino put out a statement about anything? He barely is in the program notes every now and again. Barely. So, I mean, so it's so important to realize as Watford fans that we have the power. We get told and educated that, oh, the fans don't mean anything. They don't care about the fans. They actually do care about us. Why? Because we post on social media, and two, we spend our money. The owner does care about us. He has a funny way of showing it, but he cares about us. He does. So we have to make our voices heard. We have to continue to hold him accountable, hold him to account. We can keep shouting that we want him out, but we have to sustain our protest, and we have to do it peacefully, lawfully, and do it in a way that shows that we've got the kind of leadership and togetherness out there, because that's what this is going to take. Not one vocalization, but many continuous vocalizations over months, over years. The Man United fans, they got the owner out after 15, nearly 20 years. They did peaceful marches. For the most part, were peaceful. Match after match after match. And I think it's going to take stuff like that. Now, the owner still may not go, but it's going to take a sustained effort before the Pozzos walk away from this. And maybe they will find a suitor to take this off their hands. And it's always the case that we ask, well, what happens next? So, look, I'm going to read out your comments first on YouTube because I've really neglected that. I've just seen Jose and Greg's Watford, says Brown. Ian Foster, hello, Ian. Good to see you. Stuck in Tesco car park. Good to see you alive. Thank you there, Ian. Appreciate that. People are chanting Pozzo out. There you go. There you go. That's Tesco car park. Now, is that the car park up in Coventry, or is that around the Vic? I would imagine that'd be up in Coventry. But Ian Foster, thank you so much on YouTube for your comment. That's really good. Brown Electrons, Tom is really good at developing players. Yeah, he is. He was the under-18s coach, as you know, Brown. See, this is what also doesn't make sense about all this speculation. I thought all this speculation was a bunch of nonsense. And I'm telling you what I think it is. And I think Tracy agreed with me on this. The other Tracy on Instagram, the thing I think that this is about is Pozzo himself. Who knows? I don't want to, and I don't like conspiracy theories. I'm not a fan of them. I'll tell you that right now. However, here I go indulging in one. Makes me a total hypocrite, doesn't it? Who knows? I'll just put this up there. Who knows if someone in that circle of the Pozzo land decided to put this out to the media, or at least feed a line to people. Rumors, as in Fleetwood Mac, not Fleetwood Mac rumors, but rumors. Those of you who are of a certain age know what I'm talking about when I say Fleetwood Mac rumors. If you don't, you need to go on social. You need to go on online and search Fleetwood Mac rumors. I think you'll get. I think you'll pretty much understand what I mean once you do that. But here's what I say. Would it, with all the things we know about the Pozzos, with all the things we know about them, the whole thing of Antonio Tivic, The whole thing with Gioretta giving him a 3-year deal and all the rest of that, the Cristiano, Gioretta, and all the other nonsense that's gone on, would it be beneath? Would it be above? Would it beyond? Would it be beyond the Pozzos to float this rumor out there about a manager to try to get some heat on Tom Cleverley? Would it be beyond them to do that? I'm not going to answer that question. I'll leave that to you. Here we go with more comments. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience. I'm reading out the comments here after Coventry 2, Watford 1. We are talking all things Watford today. My name is Omar from sunny San Francisco, California, lifelong Watford fan, as are all of you, wherever you are across the world. It's always great to see you here on Instagram and here on YouTube at You ORNS WFC. Please subscribe, to the You ORNS WFC YouTube channel. We'd love to hear from you. And so like the videos as well and pass on this post-match to people that you know. Here's what Brown Electron says. Look what he's done with Barr, Pollock, and Loser. Yep. Tom Cleverley has transformed those three players that you've mentioned, Brown, on YouTube. There's no secret that Loser was on the outs here. He was absolutely on the outs. Really, really, really out with Val Ishmael. He had disciplinary problems with Val. It was a very, very bad look. It was a different Loser. He got loaned out to Lorient. Then he came back at the end of the season. And then Tom Cleverley, who, of course, played alongside Loser. I remember them distinctly playing together, in the Watford game against Arsenal, that Watford would lose 3-2. When that was the days when we had that man as our manager with the initials, since Tracy talked about JM. I'll give you another one, Tracy, RH. That man was our manager. That man, RH, was our manager. And you know who RH was. And that was the man who, after Loser got subbed off and heard the boos rang out of the Vic, that man RH said, oh, well, the fans are showing their approval for a favorite. For a favorite? And he was only one of the best players that we have, Loser, at that time. And he's a good player. Oh, favorite. Don't trivialize Imran Loser, RH. And so RH managed the game in which both Tom Cleverley and Loser played together in against Arsenal, which we lost 3-2 on a Sunday afternoon at Vicarage Road in the Premier League. That's the last time that Watford played Arsenal, I think, was that season. And so Tom Cleverley has really done a lot to be playing alongside Loser and then to become a manager and then to develop Loser and make him better than what he was. Yeah, he's had an impact on Loser. He has. And Loser plays for him. Let's be fair. Let's be honest. Because they were teammates. And they got along as teammates. So it's really hard as a fellow teammate when you get along with them to now play less than your best for that very same teammate when he's your manager. That's just what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Ian Foster says, this will only happen if someone comes in with £155 million. I'm sure this is about Pozzo and the ownership. We'll see. We'll see. Who knows what will happen? I know it's going to take some money for Watford as a going concern. Watford's debt is they're trying to lower that debt. Their outlays, £29 million of outlays last season, at the end of the last season with the departing players, which you have to do. Watford don't have a lot of cash on hand. That's been revealed this week as well by Andrew French of the Watford Observer. We know that. But even with all of that said, Ian, and I agree with you, yes, you're going to have the money. If you're looking at the short term, which is this transfer market window, which ends, I think, February 2nd or 3rd, just only a week or so from now, we've got to back the man. I mean, make some more loan deals then, if you can. Make some loan deals. You got injuries up the wazoo, and Gake got hurt. I guess he was pulled off because he just wasn't that good. I don't think it's because of any injury. TDB is hanging on, and you've got at least 4 players that won't be back until April at the very earliest. At least 4. Backman won't be back before April, right? Barr won't be back before April. Festi Ebiselli won't be back before April, and maybe Loser. Who knows? I mean, Loser perhaps is going to be a little bit sooner than that. So let's manage out the rest of the season because I don't think Watford are making the playoffs. I predicted 8th before the season began. I said that's 9. I said that. That's what I said. I think it's going to be 8th. I said that before the season began, and I think that's where we're going. So there we go. Ian, thanks for the comment. Matt says, if Cleverly gets sacked, I don't think the players Cleverly has been given the opportunities to start that wouldn't normally get a chance to start. Let me say this again. Let me read this again. Matt on YouTube says the following. If Cleverly gets sacked, I don't think the players Cleverly has been given the opportunities to start that wouldn't normally get a chance to start. I'm still not clear on your sentence there. Would get left on the bench with a new manager. I see. You're saying that they would get left on the bench with the new manager and that the opportunities that they've had to start under Cleverly would change under the new manager. I think that's what you're saying, Matt, on YouTube. Please clarify that. I think you're right as well, by the way, Matt. I think there's a very good chance that you're right. New managers, if they come in, they will always change the apple cart and the deck chairs. That happens. And just like, listen, because the coaching staff will go, right? They'll go as well. And so you want to have your own coaching staff, right? That's just natural. People you trust, people who trust you, people you're comfortable with, right? You're not going to stick with people you don't know as a new head coach, right? And then just come in yourself and then leave the other personnel there. You might, there's some people who do keep some of the staff on, but you want the people you're most comfortable working with. You have a shorthand with them. It's not a xenophobia thing. It's an idea that you want to be able to have a family unit, if you will, of coaches that you're comfortable and familiar with. That makes sense. That's a human nature thing. That's not a discrimination, bias, prejudice, racism thing. That's natural to be around people that you're comfortable being around in terms of your working relationship with them, right? You form a team, you form an experience together, and you do that together. Nothing wrong with that. Completely understood. So look, we'll see what happens with all of this. It's hard to say, but I think I'm going to continue to say that Tom's going to stay here till the very end of the season. No question. Brown says, Dini's comments are really interesting, Omar, on YouTube. Brown says, which players do you think he's referring to? I know I've been thinking about that ever since he made the comments, Brown, on YouTube. Thank you, Brown Electrons. I think he's referring to two people in particular. I think that one of them is Ido Kayembe. He's not referring to Bio because Bio we know puts in his shift, so he ain't talking about him. But I do think he's definitely talking about Ido Kayembe. I do think that, and I think another person that he may well be talking about here, and it's tough to gauge all of this. Strangely enough, I think Musa Sissoko might be one of the players he's talking about too. But I don't know who else he'd be talking about on there. It ain't Matty Pollock. He didn't play with Matty Pollock. Sierralta puts in a shift. I don't think he's talking about Sierralta. So I think it's them two that I can think of. You know, those two or three that I can think of. So yeah, I think it's Sissoko, and I do think it's Kayembe. I think those are the players he might be looking at. It's a sad thing. I think the comments of Troy Deeney were necessary, though. But I'm saying it's sad because Troy Deeney knows this club better than pretty much everybody does, or knows the fan base pretty damn well. And also, I think, knows, quite frankly, these players better than anybody, except the current manager. And I do think that it is about a few players who slack off, who don't put in a shift, who spend more time arguing with the refs. Both of those players I mentioned, who I think Deeney might be referring to, are players who spend more time these days arguing with the ref than getting on with the football. And it's not to say that they're not right in arguing with the ref at times, because the ref is, Specsavers alert. But the bottom line is, for the Watford supporters watching this, is that I think both of those players that I named spend a lot more time these days arguing with the referee. And I think there's no accident that both of them have not had great seasons in total, even though don't be deceived by 7 goals. It's good that the Kayembe has 7 goals, but his performances have not been very good in these games. Okay. Just because you scored 7 goals, it don't mean that your performances are very good and that you're consistent. You know, it doesn't mean that you are. Now, we're glad for the goals from Kayembe. We'd like to see him continue to do that, and we'd like to see him play better than he's played. But today I didn't see very much from Kayembe. Did you? Today I didn't see much from Sissoko. I mean, Sissoko came off the bench. He looked a little like he had a little something about him. He scored. I know that it's credited as an own goal, but you know, if you start Sissoko, you're not getting much from him. You're not getting that much from him. Brown Electrons is talking about the Brown Electrons is talking about. I had a conversation earlier with Tracy on Instagram, and Brown Electrons and Tracy was talking about these two men who Jose Mourinho ignored in Harrods. And Brown Electrons earlier, and I have just got to this comment now. Brown Electrons on YouTube says those two men were Gino and Duxbury. I'd ignore them too. Good stuff there from you, Brown. Appreciate that. Yeah. Oh boy, can we go and start? You know, that's another topic. Scott Duxbury. I hate to even use the word fascinating in connection with Scott Duxbury, but that man is another conversation altogether. It's one thing to talk about Gino. Scott Duxbury could possibly be held in lower regard. I mean, not for nothing. I've met Scott Duxbury, not Gino. I've met Scott Duxbury and spoken to him personally at an awards dinner when Watford did these end of season awards things. I would come out and watch them and go to these things. And it's a top hat and tails affair and all that, and it's very good. And I met Scott at one of these, and I told him, I said, you know, Scott, at the time Watford were doing very well in the Premier League, and this was the 2019 season when we got to the FA Cup. I said, Scott, you know, we had a really good season. It's really good to meet you, and your commitment to Watford looks really good, and I admire that you're doing that. Keep up the good work, and let's hope that we fortify for the new season. And he said, thank you, and he was kind of polite, and that was it. But now, since then, that was 6 years ago that I met him. Since then, whoa, you could write a book. I think any Watford fan could write a book about Scott Duxbury. It would be a fascinating movie. I'd be tempted to tell him that in person because that's the kind of person I am. I mean, I'm respectful, but I am also very honest and direct and deep and respectful at the same time. So I would actually tell him, you know, we could write a book about you. If there's another one of them awards things, end of the season awards, I tell you, I absolutely would. If I had a chance to talk to him, I would tell him that. But anyway, I'm sure there are a lot of Watford fans that would say a lot worse than what I would tell them, and I wouldn't be nasty to Scott Duxbury. But he, to me, is a fascinating figure, and I don't mean that necessarily in awe of him, but I don't know how he does it. Honestly, I'll leave my comments as open-ended as possible. I don't know how the man does it, really. How do you do what you do, man? After everything that's happened, all the embarrassments, I don't know how he does it. I'll just leave it at that. But anyway, gosh, I am so bad here. I have to keep reading. Brown says, love the purple top, Omar. Thank you so much, Brown. Appreciate that. There we go. Thank you very much, Brown. Appreciate the comment there. Ryan Deb Doob says, if Gino ever sells the club, would someone else from Saudi come in to buy the club of Qatari if in the Premier League? If in the Premier League, your thoughts? Have no idea. I don't know if Watford want to do that on that basis. There's a lot of morality issues there, political issues there with that. There will be some of us, myself included, who would not be a fan of that move. I can be very frank and upfront with you there, Ryan, about that. I don't think that's a good look for the club. I don't think that's a good look for what the club stands for. But again, money is money. And we've seen millions of people around the world, when it comes to principles and integrity and money, they pick the latter. So, you know, would it shock me if that ever happened for Watford? No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. It's become a necessity in some clubs, right? And so this happens in the Premier League. But I don't see that happening here for Watford. Watford's brand is too small. I shouldn't say too small. It's not a big brand. And the club is not a big club. And I think the only way you get that kind of money into a club is if the club has a big profile. We don't have a big profile. I mean, we have a profile. We're known in different countries around the world, but we don't have a a profile like a Man United or Real Madrid. Those are the two biggest football clubs in the world. They still are. Even though Man United has been up and down. By the way, Man United recently have been playing a lot better the last few weeks. Just an aside. But their profile, Man United and Real Madrid are the two biggest football clubs in the world right now, and have been for a long time. Real Madrid has had a history of winning. Man U, overall, their history, they have a history of winning. They have a rich pedigree of history. Man United, more than any other club in England, including Liverpool. Man United are still the biggest football club in the world alongside Real Madrid. Those are the two biggest football clubs. Barcelona probably third. Man City, I don't know where they are in that. I don't know where Liverpool might be fourth or fifth, but the biggest two football clubs are Man United and Real Madrid. And the point I'm making there is that I think that the profile would be, that's the profile that the Saudis would get invested in. And by the way, as you know, Man United are well taken care of now. They got new ownership with Sir Jim Ratcliffe and all the rest. I think they're now majority owners of the club. The Glazers are minority owners of the club now. So really, Sir Jim has the say. So Jim Ratcliffe has the say now at that club, and that took 20 years almost of Man United fans, week in and week out, protesting, staying away from matches, coming to matches under protest, doing it peacefully for the most part. Pretty much, there was one protest that went off, and then they went into Old Trafford and they destroyed the goalposts. That was only a few seasons ago. They had to cancel the Man United Liverpool game because of that, from a couple of years ago. Other than that, their fans have been largely peaceful over them 20 years, and Radcliffe's the owner now. So, Watford fans, we can use that as a model, the peaceful part as a model for what we need to do if we want change at this club from the ownership standpoint. The club is a great club. We love the club dearly. As I said, I've met some really lovely people at the club for many a year. The club has always welcomed everybody, always has, which is you don't see much about. Listen, I remember the days in the 70s when that was not the case. And in the 80s, I can attest to that personally. When in them 2 decades and before that, when that was not the case at football clubs. Okay, I've been around the block a bit. I'm a bit older, a bit long in the tooth, and I've been around long enough where I can tell you that that's happened. But this club, Watford, through and through, has welcomed everybody, and we don't want. I'll speak for myself personally. I would not want to see Saudi investment at Watford. I really wouldn't. And I don't mean to get into the weeds of all of that, because I don't want to go off on that tangent, Ryan. But I don't think that even if they got to the Premier League, Ryan, that the Saudis would come in. I think that you'd probably be more likely to get American investment. You get someone from over here in the States investing in Watford, as there have been all these rumors about that for years now. They've had talks with people and then they fall through, and it's just a hodgepodge. But I don't think that's going to happen, Ryan. But I could be wrong, of course. I've been wrong before, and I'll probably be wrong again. Matt says, yes, that's what I was saying. Matt was talking earlier about players having opportunities under Cleverly that they will not get under any new manager should that happen. Ryan says, could Troy Deeney manage Watford FC? I may see that happen one day. It's possible, but I doubt. But I think it's more likely not going to happen. As long as this owner is in place, I don't think he's going to bring Troy Deeney back to manage the team. And I don't think that Troy Deeney, for management's sake, is probably what Watford need. I think Watford need a manager who is going to do what Cleverly's done with them, I just don't think that I think Troy Deeney should be a coach here. I think Troy Deeney could do well as a coach at Watford, but I probably think that head coach for now is probably not where Troy Deeney wants to be. I think he's in broadcasting. I know he's in broadcasting. Troy Deeney wants to be a broadcaster. He is a broadcaster. Troy Deeney doesn't want to be a pundit anymore. He wants to be a commentator, interviewer. And I think that's where his career is. Now, he can do more than one thing at once. He's doing a lot of great things for charity and all the rest of it. He's written a book here and there. I think Troy Deeney is going to probably end up spending the rest of his, the next few years, I should say, doing stuff on TV. He's a good pundit. He gives you really good analysis. He's very honest about what he sees and says. He doesn't suffer fools gladly. He's very point blank honest, and I love that about him because I'm kind of like that myself, and so I really respect him. Now, there's lots of things about Troy Deeney that some people go, what? But the guy tells you who he's about and what he's about, and he leaves his cards on the table for you. He is not a poker player. He lets you know, right? So some people like that. Some people don't like that. In fact, a lot of people don't like that. But I'm one of the people who does like that. So anyway, Ryan, that's my answer to your question. Brown Electron says hot. Oh yeah, I'm not going to mention them. I almost did. RH and Ranieri. God, those two were horrible. Yeah, they were. They were. By the way, Ranieri was the man. I should have asked a quiz about this, but I've now given out the answer. So I won't ask a quiz about that. But Brown, thanks for the comment. Ryan says Nottingham Forest doing well. Yes, they are. Nottingham Forest have been excellent this season. I think Nuno Espirito Santo should be the manager of the season in the Premier League. I know people will say, well, Arne Slot. Yes, Arne Slot, having never managed in England before, is going to be in with a shout. But look at the squad that Liverpool have, though. You've got to factor that in on that. I know I don't mean to now switch to talking about Liverpool. It's only because of the Forest comment that Ryan made. I want to just quickly address that. Nuno Espirito Santo gets my vote for manager of the year in the Premier League. Again, Arne Slot has done a fantastic job, better than anyone in world football. But again, look at the squad he's got and look at the squad that Forest have. And look at where Nottingham Forest have been the last couple of seasons, and look at how look at how Forest are doing now, second or third, whatever it is at the moment, second. Forest have been flying, and they've won at Liverpool. The only team that's beat Liverpool this season in the Premier League is Nottingham Forest. Okay, so yeah, Forest gets my vote, and Nuno Espirito Santo. Of course, we taught him a lesson, didn't we? About roughly 6 years ago now at Wembley Stadium. Anyway. Oh dear. Philip Crouch. LaRouche is rubbish and spent the whole game just trying to scrap with their players. He cannot defend and rarely creates anything. Kayembe was another 2 performance amongst others. Philip, thanks for your comments on YouTube. Definitely is not impressed with LaRouche or Kayembe. I thought Kayembe was, I thought LaRouche was better than that. But Philip, again, we are free to have obviously differing opinions. We should. That's what this is all about here. Philip has made his point known, and I agree with Philip though on Kayembe. They really didn't get involved. Again, this is what I talked about earlier. I really think that the Kayembe is one of the players that Troy Deeney probably was talking about. You know, I do think that he's been disappointing. He doesn't put in that shift that you would like to see from a Watford player consistently. But you might say that about a lot of players these days at Watford. But anyway, what is the bar injury, says Ryan. Also, loses injury. Loses something to do with his lower leg, ankle area. Ankle area, shin/ankle, somewhere down there. It's not exactly specified yet, as far as I know. I've not come across anything, Ryan. But as for Bar, it's his thigh. He has shredded something in his thigh muscle. And so that's going to be a long-term injury. So he's out 2 months. He may need surgery on that. So he has absolutely shredded a muscle in his thigh. And so that's what the nature of that injury is. That was Tom Cleverley actually earlier this week. It's going to be at least 2 months, and they're trying to figure out what the best course is of action for Bar. I think Bar's going to have surgery probably on that. When you're dealing with muscle injuries, they have to heal. It takes longer, but it might require surgery. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I think he's going to end up having surgery. I think if he has surgery, say next week or sometime in the early part of February, he would probably, presumably, be ready for next season, because I don't think he'd play again this season. I don't think Bart will probably play again this season. I could be wrong. I hope he does play again this season. I hope Daniel Backman, even though I prefer to see either Bond or Miles Roberts in goal, I would like to see Backman at least come back and make an appearance. He might do that. But from what we've seen, with that, he had surgery, I think. He's going to be out at least 3 months. It's January. The season's over the beginning of May. He's probably not going to kick another football for Watford this season. So you've got at least 3 players for sure. Festi Ebicelli, he's going to be out at least 2 months. Maybe he comes back in April. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he comes back in May. But I think that all of them players that I've just mentioned, the chances of them coming back to play this season for Watford are probably very, very slim. I would be happy to be proven wrong. I would love to be proven wrong. The reality is probably not going to be proven wrong on this. Let me just look. I'm looking at something else here. Hold on 1 second. Give me one moment here, fellow Watford supporters. I'm just a little bit distracted at something. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's go and read out some comments here on Instagram. Gary Costa, hello. Back Tom. Lemmy06, hello to you. Give him the money. Thank you, Gary Costa. I agree. Joe G's, hello. Watford Serbia, hello. I'm sorry that I've ignored most of you. Gosh, I'm worried about the local derby game coming up. We need the stability of TC. Thank you, Tracy, for that. Tracy, that's a real problem. I agree with you. That's a massive situation. There's been some talk on social media amongst some Watford fans about staying away from that game, but this was talk before we got the owner's statement today. It's hard to say, Tracy, whether or not, no matter what happens with Clevs, whether people do stay away. I find it very hard, though, the idea that Watford fans are going to stay away from the Vic for a game against that lot up the road. I find that very hard to believe that any Watford fan who comes to the Vic, anyone who's in the vicinity of the Vic, is going to stay away from that match. Every Watford fan wants to be at that match, who can be at that match. It would send a massive statement if Watford fans stayed away, because the owner would obviously notice that. And so I understand the situation with what you're saying. But I think also, Tracy, I think if I'm interpreting your comment correctly, you're talking also a lot about the condition of this team and the mental mindset and stability of the team going into a derby like that. Because again, we always, as Watford fans, talk about the importance of these players understanding this is a derby and it means a whole lot, not just to the fans, but to the town of Watford, to the club. It means something. And the players have got to play up for that and be up for that and be up for the challenge of that. And they didn't meet that challenge back in October. We got dusted easily by that lot who are languishing in the bottom portion of the table now. We got dusted there. And we can't let that happen again. And so we've got to have payback at the Vic when they show up there, in early February, I think it is, that they're coming. But we're in a place now, Luton Town are rooted at the bottom too. I mean, if Watford were to ever lose to them, Tracy, at the Vic in this game that they're playing in the next few weeks, it's going to be a very uneasy atmosphere at that place. So whether fans show up or not is another story. I think the fan base is going to turn up for that game, especially if Tom Cleverley is still in post, and I think he will be. And I'm confident he'll stay for the rest of the season. But the real issue is they've got to win the game. If they don't win that game, Tracy, it's going to be a very ugly scene at that place. I'm not suggesting violence or anything like that, but just the toxicity, the atmosphere is not going to be pleasant at the Vic. That's why they let the Luton Towns out. Luton, oh God, I know I mentioned them. If they let that lot out first, right, they will let the Vicarage Road end out first and let them, flutter out of there. And then they'll probably let the Watford fans out, half an hour later. I don't know how they do it. I don't know what they do. The police are going to be heavily involved, as they always are. And both of these games, the police are always extra. There's always extra police at both these locations when they play. And that's probably going to be an early afternoon kickoff for the same reason, because it's just, that's just a real that derby is still meaningful. You can, I mean, they've been playing each other for decades, and so yeah, it's a concern. We do need TDB, and I agree, Tracy. We need to have TDB. I'm sorry, TC, and that's your initials too. We need TC. We've got the TC initials there, Tracy, and Tom have the same initials, and so we need the stability of Tom Cleverley. I agree with you. Tracy, we definitely do need the stability of Tom. Ground control to Major Tom, as Mr. David Bowie would say, right? We really need him here. It's kind of like I want to start singing the lyric for Space Oddity, but I'm not going to do it. I did sing the lyrics for the Rolling Stones' Jumping Jack Flash last week when we got the win. But since my terrible singing happened, we've not won another game. So I'm going to be presumptuous to think that's because of my terrible singing, but it wasn't because of my terrible singing. But I agree with you, Tracy. All I'm saying is I agree with you. It's imperative that we get the stability out of Tom Cleverley. And we've got to back. That's why, as I said earlier, our voices as fans are very important. And we're going to have to continue to sustain this, not just for the rest of this season, but for next season and the season beyond that. And we have to do this regularly, so that this is not something that suddenly we start to say back Tom on. We need to be saying back Tom even when he is backed. We need to be saying we love Tom even when the coast is clear and he's fine. We need to be advocating, as I've said many times today, for the best interest of Watford Football Club. And we need to do that as fans. We might have minor disagreements on things and we might have minor quibbles, but as a fan base, we need to be more united. And I think we are now than we were, say, 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, because Tom Cleverley is such a beloved figure and he's so well loved and respected by us as fans, that's what has brought the fan base together on social media. Certainly people outside social media love him too. But on social media, I think there's much less of a fracture between Watford fans than there was, say, 3 years ago, 3 years ago. Anyway, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but yeah, we need to absolutely get behind Tom every step of the way. I agree with you. And I agree with your next comment there, Tracy. And none of this Potso nonsense. Absolutely, Tracy. I'm fed up of it. I'm sick of it. I know you're sick of it. I'm sure I would bet that you're sick of it too. I wouldn't have to place a bet at Coral or Ladbrokes or William Hill. I'm sure I would bet, Tracy, that you're very much sick of it, as you just said. Enough of this nonsense. It's a soap opera. I'm sorry. There are enough soap operas on television across the world. We don't need another one. We've had too many of them at the Vic. I know about Bassini and all the rest of it. And was it Jack Petchy and all the rest of these folks over the years. And whether it's owners or managers, we've had Dave Bassett and how disastrous that was back in the day. And I mean, we've had a lot. Listen, I know that lots of clubs go through their fair share, but man, we've had some stinkers at the Vic. But we've had some good people at the Vic too. Kike was a good man at the Vic. I know, look, the second time around wasn't so great for him, but he's a good man, good person. Clev's a good person. He's with us. I thought Val was a decent person, but not decent enough for a lot of Watford fans. They didn't like him, and whatever. That's just another story there. Didn't care for Val, and Val was not beloved because a lot of Watford fans, some Watford fans thought that Val Ishmael was not the right fit. I was skeptical of Val too, by the way, when he came in. I was very skeptical of him. And so he didn't have that goodwill. Tom Cleverley has goodwill. And I think one of the things that saved his job so far is that he has goodwill with the club, with the team, with the team and the fans. Some of these managers didn't have goodwill with the team. The team didn't play for the manager. Whether it was Ranieri, they didn't play for him. That's obvious. And they didn't play for RH. And they didn't play for, you can name them, insert your manager here, right? But this team is playing for Clevs, even though they're not performing well for him at the minute, for the last few minutes. They are playing well for him. They do believe in him, they trust him, and they do respect him. And Tom Cleverley knows that, and he commands respect anyway. And any manager should, especially a manager who is a former player. And so, for me at least, I think Tom Clever's going to get through the season without any other issue. And I agree. Again, Tracy, I'll read out your comment again. And none of this pot so nonsense. Let's have it out our club, and they can get out the club too. But again, we have to stick together as fans here. We've got a voice, we've got power, we've got more power than we think. We've got to use it. And we've got to not be afraid to use it. I think sometimes, with some people in our fan base, we tend, some of us, to be a little bit too trusting sometimes of the owner, because we know that he's done some good things here, and we hang on to that because we want to be positive, which is fine. We can be positive. I'm a positive person, but I'm also a realist, and I'm a very optimistic, but I'm also a realist. And at some point, you say nice things and you say thank you for the nostalgic times where you had all four sides of that stadium and you did that, you put the money in. Perfect, right? Thank you. But these last 6 years have been a dog, with no offense to dogs. This last 5 or 6 years have been dogs, have been an absolute dog. So, no. There's a point in which you let that nostalgia go. And you then say to yourself, hang on, you want to sack who? That's the posture we need to keep taking. And we have to continue to raise our voices and be respectful. And, no one should be running on a pitch. I've heard that floated on social media. Someone said, oh, should we run on the... No. And I'm glad people shot that down, I wish I used a better term than that. I'm glad people put the water hose on that, for lack of a better term, right? We don't need anybody running on a pitch. That's not going to get anything done. It's going to put people in a lot of trouble. It's going to put you perhaps behind bars for quite a little bit of time, and it's going to ban you from Vicarage Road. So no running on a pitch. Not a good idea, right? So we're not having any of that here either. Peaceful, lawful, respectful, but vociferous protests on social media, at the ground, if you please, away from home, if you please, or you buy less merchandise, or you don't buy the merchandise at all. I went a year plus without buying any merchandise when some of the stuff was happening the last couple of years here at the Vic. And then I started buying one or two things again, but not as much as I used to. I used to give away shirts for free. I used to give away shirts to Watford fans here. And I've not done that deliberately over the last couple of years because of, this owner who has made a dog's dinner of things the last 5 or 6 years. Anyhow, more comments. Dan Atkins, hello to you. Back Tom, says Dan. RB Holland, hello to you. I'm sorry I've not got to all your comments yet. Thank you. Elliot Birdie, thank you. Meerkat for London, thank you. Dan Atkins, Tom Cleverly, ole. Thank you there for that comment, Dan. Jamie, hello to you. Hornet 1881 joins as well. Thank you all. I'm so sorry I didn't acknowledge you earlier on this tangent I'm on, which means I'm also so sorry I didn't get to you on YouTube yet either with the latest comments that you've put forth. Peter Watts, thank you, Peter, says this on YouTube. This is the following. Peter, hey, Omar, nice to see you. It's okay. I know he's Peter, it's all right. You misspelled my name, but that's all right. OMAR is my name. But Peter, thank you. I get what you're saying. And Peter, thank you for your comment. Hey, Omar, he says, nice to see you. Nice to see you as well, Peter. Thank you. Poor set of results recently, but we are down to bare bones and the support for the head coach is still there. Gino is the one who has to take the blame for where we are now. Peter, I agree with you. Gino has to take the blame. The manager doesn't. The manager went 17 unbeaten at the Vic. I think people are beginning to forget that somewhere, Gino. That your manager had gone 17 unbeaten at the Vic. That's a 48. No one has had that kind of run in 48 years. Not even Graham Taylor, who's the greatest ever Watford manager. I think that alone buys him some goodwill. It's not the manager, it's the players who have been shaky, but the head coach, they're playing for him. Gino now, I think, look, he's the money situation was impossible before Gino got here. And he did a lot, I think, in some ways to lower that debt. But there's a lot of bad choices he's made over the last 5 or 6 or 7 years, even more than that, that have not been very wise, have been very, have lacked, they have not been judicious. And because of all of that, yeah, Gino's now the one that the fans are looking at, and they should be looking at him. We all should be looking at Gino because he's the one um, who I think has made some really poor choices financially. And again, a lot of this is some of this debt. This debt was here before he was. This debt's been at Watford Football Club for many a decade, by the way. Bassini was a disaster. He was a crook. There's no question. Bassini is an absolute joke. And Pozzo, who again began with very good will from Watford fans over the first few years of his tenure, is now, quite frankly, for lack of a better terminology, showing his backside to the fans and has made some poor choices. The whole thing, that I keep repeating this, Antonio Tivic, that was a joke. And that was a joke. That's why you can't trust the front office now. You can't trust the owner. You can't trust the Pozzos now because of stuff like Tivic. I mean, how come we just get to learn about that this week? That's not acceptable. Where's the transparency for the fan base to look at? And so that's the thing that's why a lot of the fans, that's why a lot of us are calling for him to be gone. I'm calling for him to be gone and all. But that shows you that they can't be trusted. If you didn't think they could, if you thought they could have been trusted before, I think you better change. You better look at this thing with Tivic. Why on earth are we not being told that in advance? Why are we only being told 5 months on about Tivic being a permanent signing for 5 years or whatever it was? That's not how you treat your fan base. That's not how a club should operate. We demand to be in the know. That's why our voices need to be heard consistently. We need to keep the fan base engaged. We need our voices to be heard, and we need to keep bringing up the temperature and the heat and the volume on this man, on this owner. I agree, Peter. He has to take the blame for this. We've got to hold him to account for that. And the way to do that is what I've said, whether it's peaceful protesting or economics or both. And I know some people say, oh, boycotts don't work. I disagree. Boycotts do work. They've worked through history. I mean, I can point to a number of them here in America over decades that have worked, that did work, Dr. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, to talk American history for a second. Montgomery bus boycott, that worked. I'm not likening the two boycotts, but I'm just issuing one of many examples where if you're committed to doing it, an economic boycott actually does work. That one definitely did in the 1950s. But Watford fans, as I was saying earlier, some of us are very, very, I think some of us can be very trusting to the point in which we trust in Gino. And even now, some of the Watford fans I've seen, spoken to, talked to, read on social media, one or two of them are, still believing in Gino. Still, someone remarked recently to me about this, and I didn't respond to it, but I thought that, wow, there are some people who still believe in Gino and trust him, and I understand that people have a right to trust him or respect him. I mean, I respect Gino, but I don't think he's the owner who should continue to own the club. I think someone else should. He has a right to own the club and do what he sees fit with. But I'm sorry, when it hurts the interests of the fan base, and especially even more so the interests of the club, he's got to go. He's got to go, and he's definitely hurt the interests, I think, of the club. And listen, the bottom line is that when you have a fan base that wants you gone, you've hurt your relationship with the fans. I mean, listen, many of us would say that Gino's never really talked to the fans. Yes, there've been some at our place meetings and all that. But as I said much earlier on, I'm sorry, that don't mean nothing if we don't, A, keep following him up on and keep challenging him and encouraging him and telling him to do the right thing on behalf of this club. It doesn't matter how many at our place meetings you have. If we're not sustaining that pressure on him in a vocal, respectful, and peaceful way, it's not going to matter. But the reason why he put out that statement is because of us, because of all of you. Don't ever forget that. It's a real good lesson to keep in mind. Let's see here. Omar, this is Matt now saying this. Omar from the FOTMob football app. I have it says that Bar will be out till late March. This is from an app that Matt is reading from, and I'm reading from what Matt has said here. Out till late March, Loser out till mid-February, Ebiseli out till early February, Backman out till mid-April, Droma out till mid-March. Okay, so that's what an app is saying. Thank you for that, Matt. Again, I can't really comment on what that app says. I mean, all I can say is that until we get something definitive from the club, I'm going to just make assumptions, which I really shouldn't do, that these injuries, are not only serious, but they could see these players out for a long time. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I do appreciate, Matt, that you've come back in with that information. Again, I can't really make much of that, and it's what an app says, not what the Watford physios are saying. And so all I will say to you, Matt, is that these players are obviously going to be out for some of these players will be out for many weeks and months, and some players will be only out for a few more weeks, perhaps. But we'll see. We'll see what happens in the short and long term. But thank you for your comment, Matt, on that. Ryan says, what has happened to Cisco Munoz since he left Watford? Well, he went to a club in South America. I think the Los Tigres, I think it was. I think he went to a club in Spain at one point as well. But I'm not sure where he presently resides now in terms of his football. He says also a while ago, Cisco Munoz spoke to a fellow Watford FC channel, and I believe he said he would come back sometime. I think I'd heard about this as well. I think it was because he was asked if he would come back. But I don't know how true it is, though. I mean, I'd only heard about this. We hear a lot of things. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, Ryan. I don't think that he's going to be coming back to Watford. It's not to say that we haven't had managers return to Watford. Look at Kike, right? He returned to Watford. It's not that we've not had that before. Graham Taylor returned to Watford, if I remember correctly. He had gone to Aston Villa. I think he'd become the England manager, and I think he came back to Watford after that, I believe. So he had 2 tours of duty, at least 2 stints with Watford, Graham Taylor. So, there's not unprecedented to bring back previous managers back again. I mean, Ray Lewington was the manager of this club at one point. You may remember that. And he was brought back in, obviously, but this time under different circumstances. He was the number 2 to RH when they came in during Watford's relegation season. And they're like a hand in. I mean, RH and Ray Lewington are like this. They're like this. So that's understandable, I guess. But no, I don't think Cisco's going to come back here. And I don't know that I would want him back here, actually, Ryan. I really don't know. He was good in his time. Some people thought that he was out of his depth when he was a Premier League manager for us. Maybe not on that, but he did really good things in the Championship. I think he was more suited to the Championship, but more suited to the personnel he had at the time, and he got the most out of them. He was clearly a player's manager. He was looked at as one of the lads, and I think the lads galvanized around him. He was much more open and joyful. This is after Ivic, who was like watching paint dry. He had no personality. His football had no personality, and the players didn't like him. And listen, even though they were 6th or 7th when they sacked him, shows you that it doesn't matter what position Watford are in the table. If the manager's not getting the results, not getting the results as far as the owner's concerned. But Ivic was like watching paint dry, and so was the football that Watford played. And so as a result, he was gone. And so anyone coming in after him was going to be gravy. And Cisco had the right personality. He was very positive, very confident. He engaged the fans. The fans liked him. I think many Watford fans liked him, if not most Watford fans really liked Cisco. Cisco Disco, all of that. So there were people who loved Cisco. He had a lot of love with a lot of the Watford fans. Some Watford fans didn't like him, but a lot of others did. And so that kind of atmosphere coming into Watford breathed breathed new life into the club, into the fan base, into the players, and the players played for him. They went on a great run. Troy Deeney had a lot to do with that as well, because some of the players weren't digging in, and Troy Deeney had to take people aside and say, "Hey, look, what are you up to? Do you want to play here? Do you want to not play here?" Troy Deeney has that kind of pull at this club, and so that's what happened. So I am just trying to answer the question by saying, no, Brian, he's not coming back here. And Philip Crouch has said, why would we want Munoz back? No thanks. Yeah, see, that's the thing. What Philip said there on YouTube is that that happens, And thank you, Tracy. Gotta go speak soon. Speak soon, Tracy. Nice to see you again. Thank you for joining us here on You Orns Extra on Instagram Live. Always appreciate your comments, and be well, be safe, and we'll see you speak soon, and we'll see you soon. So take care, Tracy. Thank you. But as I was saying to you, to Philip's point there, it was a different era with Cisco. That was 4 years ago now, right? Got them promoted during the COVID era. Sauce penalty from the spot against Millwall in the 11th minute. 1-0 Watford, then that was the promotion, right, to the Prem. Different era now, different time. Cisco was good for the time in which we needed him to be, and sometimes you just have to let a manager go like that. You sacked him 7 games into the season in the Premier League. Did he deserve that? I think in hindsight he probably didn't, even though, yes, maybe the Premier League was a bit too big for his boots. The fact of the matter is that I think he should have been given longer than the 7 games. I think you've got to give him a bit longer than that to ply his trade in the Prem. But they didn't, of course. Cisco didn't do that. And then Cisco, yes, indeed, Ryan, he was at Sheffield Wednesday briefly, and then that didn't work out either. So, it's lightning in a bottle for a lot of this stuff. I think a lot of this is about lightning in a bottle. Cisco is a good manager, I think, and he was good for the time he was at Watford. And you just close the book on that. You say, thank you, Cisco, for what you did, and farewell and happy trails and safe travels. That's how I look at Cisco. I don't think we should be in the business as a club or even as fans waxing nostalgia to bring back previous managers. I don't think that's where we need to be going. The future for Watford, for me, where managers are concerned, are managers who know the club well or decently enough. And Tom Cleverley knows the club. He can build the nucleus of the players. He can develop player talent, and he's done that well with his team around him. He's somebody, I think, who, as an English manager, does have a bit more of a finger on the pulse of things. It's not to say that foreign managers don't. They do. They are good at that too. But it's a much better thing to have a manager who's already been at Watford and knows the club than bring someone else in. That's why I think anything that this owner were to do to bring in a manager from somewhere else makes no sense. Even if it was another English manager, why go to some other English manager to come in if you're going to get rid of Klebs, when Klebs is here right now, an English manager doing a good job despite these latest results? It's pointless to me. I mean, that's just where I look at it now. So anyway, I see that Ryan's retracting all his messages now. Ryan, it's all right. You don't have to retract your messages, mate. It's up to you. You can do what you want with your messages. I'm not criticizing you. I'm just, I know you, and I'm not criticizing you. I'm simply saying that I just think that, and you're not wrong to have your opinion, nor am I. None of us is wrong to express our opinion. People will agree with it. People will disagree with it. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. So as long as we're decent and respectful to each other, I think that's all that really matters in the end. And so you don't have to delete your messages, Ryan. I mean, it's up to you. As I said, you can do what you choose, obviously. I just think that when we're talking about Watford and about managers, I think the future is about managers who know the league well, who know the players well, and who know the club better. And of course, lots of managers don't know Watford Football Club well, but they can research. There's a thing called the internet that they can jump on, and they've got internet connections, assumedly. And I'm sure that they can jump on a phone and do research on Watford, or have one of their people do research on Watford and get to know the club pretty darn well, right? So, but I think that Tom Cleverley is the man to stick around for the next couple of seasons. I really do. Even if Watford slide down to the bottom 7 or 8 in the table and finish there, which I don't think they will. I think they'll stay 8th, even though they're 9th now. I think that Tom Cleverley is the man for the job, and you've got to keep developing these players around what we've got. You've got young players that are coming in. They're on the bench. They're starting. That has been a good example. That is another one that wasn't mentioned, but I'll mention him, who he's developed well here. He's been the under-18s coach in the academy. Come on. You've got to know when to put these players out there and give them a shot. Injuries happen. I mean, this is the thing is injuries happen. So it's not one of them things. Yeah, I know. And then so let me read out the rest of your comments here. This is Matt. I respect Gino, but like my man used to say, like my nan used to say, I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him. Yep, I agree. The trust has gone for Gino. Any trust, I mean, there's still Watford fans who trust him. I've talked about that earlier, but the vast majority of the Watford fan base on social media does not trust Gino Pozzo, and they want him gone. And it's up to him when to go. Only he can say that when he wants to go. When the Pozzo family can go, only they can say that. Then the question is, who are you bringing in to own the club once you've got Pozzo gone? So we'll see about that. But I agree. I actually do respect Gino Pozzo. I just don't care for what he's done these last 6 years at the club. It's been very substandard. I don't think he's being honest enough with the fans. He might go to an Our Place meeting, once in a while. But I'm sorry, that's not good enough. And he needs to be fully transparent as to everything going on. Now, obviously, he's not going to go into deep, sensitive money matters. But I'm sure that there's other things about the club that we need to be aware of. And Andrew French has done some excellent reporting on this lately, particularly this week, particularly when it comes to the money. But there we go with that. Here's Philip Crouch saying, I read out Ron's comment before. Philip Crouch says, if Cleverley does go, bring in Deitch. He won't put up with laziness. I agree with that. But Sean Dyche just got sacked from Everton, didn't he? What, about 2 weeks ago now? David Moyes is now back there. And I get it. In football, people do bring back managers from yesteryear. They did that at Everton with David Moyes, right? He's in his second tour of duty there. I don't know that Sean Dyche, as good as he was with Watford, and of course he used to play for Watford as well, until he had a really nasty injury that ended his career, like Tom Cleverley did, right? Had a nasty injury in his career. And Sean Dyche was a Watford manager as well, as Ryan points out. But my whole thing is that I don't think that Sean Dyche is right for the club either, quite frankly. Not for what we need right now. Now, again, please feel free to disagree. I just don't think that Sean Dyche at this moment is what the men's first team needs. You need these younger players. You need someone that's close to the academy to have a pipeline to the academy. The through line is Tom. I almost said Tom. I almost said a different Tom. Tom Cleverley. There's a relationship there with the fan base. Don't disrupt that. I know the fans have a relationship with Sean Dyche, but it's a very different one. It's not the same. Dyche was what, 20 years ago almost, right? Or whatever it was, right? It's not the same. It's not the same dynamic. And Tom Cleverley's played recently for the club. He's the under-18s head coach, and now he's the head coach of the men's team, first team. This is the nucleus that this club has to build for the next 2 or 3 seasons, and it has to be, I believe, under Clevs. And if you do that, I think you're in good shape. If you don't do that, it could be a problem. If you get rid of Clevs now, be careful what you wish for. Because what you're going to end up doing is fostering a situation where people are going to be divided again at this club. The fans are going to have much more venom for this owner, as they should in a situation like that. And it's going to be toxic. You don't want that at the Vic. We've had the toxicity. We've had it many, many times over many, many decades, right? We don't need that again. The owner has to step back here and listen to the fan base. It's that simple. Let's hope he does. Now, Peter Watt says, a lot of fans I have spoken to says our playoff chase completely ends. Gino, that if our playoff chase completely ends, Gino will pull the plug on TC. It's just a rumor, of course, but to some people, he's holding out for an unlikely promotion. Maybe he is, Peter. Maybe Gino, if you're talking about Gino holding out, maybe you're right about that. It wouldn't surprise me. I think business people, businessmen, businesswomen, business people by nature, very impatient. And I do believe that your point is well taken about the playoff chase. Because right now, they're now, what, 3 or 4 points out of the playoff spots? I think it's three points at the minute. And Watford have got Norwich next. Very important game. Norwich have thumped Swansea 5-1 earlier today in an early afternoon kickoff. And Watford are now 3 points off the playoffs with a -1 goal difference. 12 goals behind Middlesbrough, who are in 6th place, and they lost today, Middlesbrough. Both Middlesbrough and Blackburn lost today. I mean, this was a big opportunity lost for Watford. Again, Watford could have at least finished in 7th tonight had they won this game, based on the other results. Look at these results. Middlesbrough lost 2-1. Blackburn lost 2-1. And there you go, right there. West Bromwich Albion destroyed Portsmouth. Okay, so West Brom, no problem for them, 5-1. Crushed Portsmouth. But when you have both Blackburn Rovers and Middlesbrough losing today, you've just dropped, it's like you dropped 6 points today, not 3. Chris Hodgkinson on Instagram. Thank you, Chris. Hello to you. Hope you're well. You've lost a real opportunity. This is the second consecutive game in the last 4 days where Watford have lost ample opportunity, lost a big opportunity to go into the top 6. Both of those two teams lost on Saturday, on Tuesday night as well. Blackburn lost on Tuesday night, and West Brom lost on Tuesday night, I think it was. And Middlesbrough got a draw. Middlesbrough beat West Brom on Tuesday. Blackburn lost on Tuesday, and I think the other team, whoever it was, picked up a point. And we lost. Today, Blackburn lose, West Brom win, Middlesbrough lose, and we lose again. We lose again. That's another opportunity that we've lost to get into the playoffs or get close to it. Had we won both these games against the likes of a Preston, against the likes of a Coventry, we would be right in the playoffs right now. We'd be right there. We'd be on 47 points. 47. That would put us in 5th. There's a 11-point gap between Sunderland and West Brom. Sunderland on 55, West Brom on 44. And I do think, Peter, that if Watford start to lose more games here and a further cut adrift, yeah, it's a possibility that Gina will turn around and go, that's it, enough. Let's hope that doesn't happen. I still think Tom's going to stay for the end until the end of the season, as I've been predicting since July of last year. But that's where we are now, Peter. Thank you for the comment. Does anyone know, Ryan says, when the board is going to do a question session with Q&A session with fans? No, I'm not sure about that, Ryan. Could ask Vicarage Watford Football Club and see if they've got any answers. Good luck getting any. But that's where we are now. I do want to say thank you very much. It's been a long post-match, but I do appreciate all the comments. It's been really good engaging and interacting with fellow Watford supporters. Thank you so much. The final score was Coventry 2, Watford 1. Don't forget to find yours truly on Instagram at You Orns WFC, on X at You Orns WFC, and on YouTube at You Orns WFC. Please subscribe there for the You Orns WFC YouTube channel, and of course the podcast as well. You Orns Watford FC podcast is available on Apple and Spotify. Thank you very much, everyone, and take care there, Peter. Thank you so much indeed. And Peter, thank you. Ryan, Ryan, you've asked what email to contact the club. Please head to watfordfc.com. I know that may not be, you may not find that helpful, but it is very helpful. I think there is a contact us page. there are people you can get in touch with. You just have to hunt that down, search for contact Watford, something like that. And then there should be some kind of email address. Then there's a supporters liaison that you can absolutely look at, and they will be able to help you. I'm sure. I forget. I think it might be Chris Price or Chris, whatever his last name is. But you need to get in contact with them and ask. I think Chris might know, but I'm not sure if he knows. Anyway, thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate you on YouTube and on Instagram. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Matt. Thank you again, Omar, for another great post-match chat. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you, Matt. You too. For those of you watching now or later, I want to thank you very much indeed for doing so. It's been a pleasure to have you aboard here. Omar here in San Francisco, California, fellow Watford fan, reporting post-match here on these channels. Don't forget to join us again next Saturday for Watford versus Norwich. It's an early afternoon kickoff, if I'm not mistaken. I think it is 12:30 at the Vic next Saturday afternoon, I should say, early afternoon against Norwich City, who we need to get to pay back based on all of this. The weather here in San Francisco, at least in this part of America, is sunny, a little bit cloudy at the moment, but the blue sky is there and the sun is popping out. So it's good right now, Ryan, probably close to 60 degrees. It's going to get a little bit warmer than that, I think, later on during the day, 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Be well, take care, everyone. And until next week, we know what the score was today. I'm not going to repeat it. Until next week, Tom Cleverley still in a job at Watford. He's going to stay, I think, for the rest of the season. Until next Saturday against Norwich, Watford versus Norwich at the Vic, I'm Omar saying, "You ORNS." Take care and have a good day, everyone. Great rest of your weekend and enjoy. Be well.